it gladdens my heart to see you all here to support what we're doing. I really appreciate you. And I must appreciate our discussant for the roundtable discussion, Mr. Dozie Okafor, the MD of PhD Media, one of the leading media agencies, media buying agencies in Nigeria. And he's a hard man to catch. So when you catch him, hold him very well. So I'm very excited that you were able to join us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I really appreciate you, sir. And Ms. Dola for Otegbai, thank you so much. So she's such a sweet lady. I met her on LinkedIn, and she was very receptive. And I would say that she has contributed so much to giving me a better perspective to how I want to, run as an organization. I shared with her some of the ideas that I had, and she gave me a vivid description or direction of how I should go. And that has greatly informed the output that we're going to be launching today, which is the Brand Policies magazine. She is one who has over 2 decades experience in brand management, marketing, and everything you want to say about, positioning a brand in the marketplace. She has worked extensively with President Campina Wampo, and currently she is the principal consultant of DKO Consulting, and she's helping brands to win in the marketplace. Thank you so much, Ma, for having this time with us. We really appreciate you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. Looking forward to the session.
Thank you so much. So we're looking forward to the insights you're going to share. And so the topic is about audience measurement system in Nigeria. My guys in the house, so Mr. IDNang. Mr. IDNang is here. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, OGH, and good evening, everyone. Congratulations.
Now I cannot talk again. No. My heart is now beating like you say.
Yeah, you're not serious, so please. Not with my chairman, Dozie. I greet you, my guy at the top, and my spectacular Dolly. Thank you for yesterday. I don't know how I take carry my guy. If Dozie enter, I'll be substitute. Once I see name for there, myself I don't kill him as he done as substitute. So I'm a good sub. I'm here to learn, and greetings to all the beautiful people on the platform. God bless you, and congratulations, Ogali.
I really appreciate that.
This that you've started is just the beginning of greater, mighty things to happen to you, and the Colossus. The name will outlive and remain what it is to be. So, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Let me sit and learn.
Okay, sir. All right. Thank you, sir. So we were talking about the audience measurement system in Nigeria, and I understand that a lot has been done in terms of creating new solutions in addressing audience measurement in Nigeria. I have been in several occasions where the audience measurement tools were launched. I recall I was at the launch of Okula by PhD Media, and it was delightful to see how that resonated with the clients who obviously wanted to solve some marketing problems and to have solutions that would help them plan and make smart decisions in regards to advertising budget, their advertising budget. And so while we had to choose this topic for discussion was because the federal government, we all know, has been working to introduce a measurement system that they promise will address some of the challenges we are encountering as an industry. And that measurement system is scheduled to launch in July. It's expected to kick off in Lagos in July. And just to give us a better perspective to what we should expect as an industry, we were supposed to have someone from the organization to give us insights into the tools that is to launch in July, but unfortunately we couldn't get them to talk on this platform. Hence, we're going to just streamline our conversation to how ready the industry is and what are the challenges that still exist within that space as we expect to receive the new technology. It is expected that that technology there would be a deployment of 7,000 panels in Nigeria. Information we gathered revealed that South Africa currently uses 5,000 panels to man data. for their audience measurement. So Nigeria having 220 population is expected to have 7,000 panels being deployed in various parts of Nigeria. Lagos, being the economic center of the country, would have 3,000 panels being distributed within Lagos State for the first phase, expected to kick off in July. The second phase will follow thereafter with cities Abuja, Port Harcourt, Kano, and Kaduna states, and they will be having 2,000 panels being deployed. Other parts of the country not covered under the first phase and the second phase will be covered under the third phase, where 2,000 panels will also be distributed. Now, this technology promises that it would eliminate perception buying, where advertisers just buy, media spaces based on the assumption that it will deliver well on return on investment. But this technology promises that they will be able to provide the accurate, reliable, and timely data that will enable advertisers make informed decisions as regards the advertising spend. However, as an industry, as we await that technology to be launched in July, we need to look inward and see what are the challenges with the existing tools that we have, how well have been provided the necessary solutions in meeting with the expectations of industry stakeholders, especially the clients who are very concerned about how to maximize their budget. And so that brings me to the question where I'm going to ask Dozie Okafor, what is the current state of the audience measurement system in Nigeria? I know you have been at the forefront in advocating for that. PhD Media Reach has been at the forefront advocating for more of those solutions because, of course, it's very important for the industry and the economy at large. So you just give us what is the current state of the audience measurement system in Nigeria. We already know there are some existing tools. To what extent does these various tools, are they meeting with the current challenges that we are currently experiencing in the industry?
Thanks, Ogali. So just to provide some bit of background, the current audience measurement system is probably about 20 years old. It is diary-based. And what it provides is, first of all, what we call TAMS, which is TV Audience Measurement Survey. And then it provides the RAMS, which is the Radio Audience Measurement Survey. So those two electronic media platforms, you are able to get audience sizes, who's watching what, where, and when. That will be the, just simply put, what those platforms can provide. It's a little bit more technical than that, but that is the basis of that. Then you also have AMPS, All Media Product Survey. So there are about 60 or 64 categories that are covered. And within AMPS, which is an annual survey, and I should add that the TV Audience Measurement Survey and the Radio Audience Measurement Survey are diary-based, and they are done monthly. But there's a caveat. Not every state is done monthly. And we'll come to that as a problem later on in the conversation. But not every state is done monthly. Some states are done quarterly. And as you can imagine, if there are issues in certain states, then the field workers can't go in and you don't get data for those states. So those are some of the challenges you face with that. The audience, the AMPs, the categories that are covered, about 64 different categories in AMPs, enables us get consumer profiles, psychographic profiles, demographic profiles. It enables us to get product usage, consumption analysis. It enables you to have media consumption habits across different media platforms. It enables you to profile your audience based on socioeconomic class, access to different amenities, household consumables. But the challenge is that the AMPS is done annually. So it's done once a year. It's probably one of the most extensive surveys done in the country. But by its very nature, you can imagine how capital intensive and how long it takes to get that survey done. So for proper context, your 2020 survey, you probably will get it at best late 2021. Your 2023 survey, you're probably not going to see it till early 2025 because the field work has to be done, the data has to be collected, it needs to be cleaned, it needs to be verified before it's shared. Now, all these data platforms are fed into a system called MediaStar. So that is the software that is used to analyze the data. MediaStar as a platform has been in place for probably as long as the data set has been available, so probably about 2 decades. It's been revamped. There's been different versions of it, but it's still not where it needs to be. It's maybe not the most intuitive data platform. So if you're not trained in using the platform, you're probably going to struggle in using it. But that is what is available. As at late last year, there was a launch of a new data platform called MI. It uses the same TAMs, RAMs, and AMPS data sets, but it's a more intuitive platform. It's easier to use. It's easier to analyze data. And it's still being rolled out across different agencies. So that roughly is where we are. That is the current system that all agencies use as their currency data.
Wow. So, I mean, there's a lot that we need to fill in terms of the gaps. And I mean, you highlighted the fact that not every state can be measured monthly. That could also be a gap that we need to address. But are there other gaps that you have that you can highlight for us as we look towards accommodating the new technology that the FD has promised for the industry?
Yeah, look, absolutely. The first obvious gap is the data isn't real time. Now, because it's also diary based, you also have the human error, human interference. What we really need to move to is a passive data system that just records in the background. If you are depending solely on people filling out a diary, there could be the probability that they will fill after the fact, and their recollection of what they watched or heard and when might not be as accurate. But if you had a passive system like, a DSTV box, for instance, that is sitting in your home, that just records in the background, or similar to how Google or Facebook gets your data passively on the background, then it's a lot more accurate and a lot more real time. So getting real-time data is probably one of the gaps. The second gap is also a bit obvious as well, and that's the long lead time with the data collation. That leads to longer lead time with the analysis, and the final submission to agencies like us is months down the line. So that's a challenge. Another challenge is the media types that are not covered. So out of home, print, cinema, while they are covered to some degree, not as extensive as TV and radio. So it kind of makes clients that are investing a lot more in out of home. So you take your alcohol businesses, for instance. The platform is not as useful for clients like a Diageo or clients like a Pernod Ricard that has 90% of their budgets on billboards. So this wouldn't be the platform they will go to more actively, as you would imagine. Digital is also not adequately covered. There are a few questions in there that gives you a general sense of where we are from a digital perspective, covered under AMPS, but not an extensive survey that enables you to analyze. And you would think that this should be easy because you can plug in APIs from a digital standpoint to measure in real time, but digital isn't really covered there. There's also the cost implication. So there are clients who are not willing to cover the research cost on a continuous basis. So while there is there's a gap in the market, as according to a colleague of mine, Dr. Ola Brown would say, if there's a gap in the market, but is there a market in the gap, right? There are probably not enough clients that are willing to dole out the amount of investments on a continuous basis. So maybe your top 10, top 15 tops advertisers will do that every year, but some will buy on an ad hoc basis, and that doesn't really sustain the platform. So those are probably the 4 or 5 key things I would say are the main gaps there.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, for Dolapo, you are one who have had over 2 decades experience working on the client side, and I would like to have your thoughts in terms of the impact of the current state of the audience measurement system in Nigeria on advertising spend from your own perspective as one who has worked on the client side.
Okay, thanks for that question. I think the starting point is to even acknowledge that we've evolved over time. I remember many years ago. When I started my career, even in an advertising agency that had media agency as part of the group. I recall then the MPS, Media Planning Services, run by Mr. Folabi. I don't know, maybe now it's a bigger organization, but I recall vividly in those days, he goes everywhere and he's trying to win everybody over, both agency and clients, on the need for subscription, to subscribe to diaries, to ARMs, to use. And as a junior manager then, I really struggled to understand of what use is it. So, but then I'm very happy that if you look back now, 25 years, I don't think there's any organization, especially mainstream organization, and not even talking about the multinational corporations and all, that do not use one form of media measurement or audience measurement or the other. It has become very important and a bedrock, for clients or for organizations, especially in decision making. Another point I want to make before answering the question is that the gap that we see now, or the need that even federal government is trying to address, honestly, is not peculiar to this particular sector only. If you look at from a data point of view for Nigeria, we are very backward. We do not have sufficient data. And unfortunately, most of the decisions that we make is usually driven by Google data or social media data in general. For example, within the organization, if you want to do a pestle, as an example, you see everybody running to CIA facts from US, maybe one or two data available on MBS platform, but overall, having data and gaining access to data in Nigeria is a big challenge. Now, coming to answer this, and I'm very happy the progress and the way that the people are going, that's the organizations are going towards this, and federal government support to it. We are in a VUCA period. Many organizations and many brands are under pressure. So even A&P, as we know it, has evolved, has changed. Now you need to make choices. Commercial directors, marketing directors are making choices. And so the import of audience measurement becomes very relevant, where you have scarce resources, scarce A&P, and you have an array of platforms and choices, to choose from. Without an accurate, comprehensive data, or you will not be able to estimate the effects or the impact of your campaign, And so at the end of the day, it's not really about inefficient spending, but even more important is the missed opportunities that we don't have. And you spend a lot of money producing world-class TVCs, running into millions of dollars and all. And at the end of the day, it's like you are shooting in the dark. You are not certain of where it's like, guesstimating. And in this industry, and especially with media that consumes almost 80% of a brand's budget, there is no really room, and it's not acceptable for us to continue to guesstimate. So I'm very happy that this is coming up, but it's just to recognize that it's building on, as Doze said, on an existing platform that we should also give recognition to.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of informing the decisions of clients, and it relates to advertising spend, we have sort of made some remarks about insufficient data. Of course, if you cannot access data timely, there's a bit of lack of data at the immediate time you would want to apply to the decision-making process. So, as one who has been on the client side, how does this influence the decision process when you had to now decide, oh, this is what should go for what channel? I mean, tell us what the processes are, and how does this insufficient access to data actually influence that decisions?
Okay, so thanks for that question, and a very good one. From my experience, it's very important that we triangulate data, especially for decision making. And as I said, within the A&P budget of brands, especially big brands, media takes about 80% of it, while the balance 20% goes to activation, experiential activation, and the rest. So it's a big budget campaign. Overall, I think what is working, if you want to talk about what is working now, as Doze said, if you look at the cities, so there is almost sufficient data for cities. The biggest challenge, and I don't really know how it's going to be solved, is really in the hinterlands, the secondary towns, especially in the northern part of Nigeria, and specifically the northeastern part of Nigeria, where we had challenges and all. I know and I recall, and I'm sure many people will agree with me here, that some of our colleagues that are there, the sales guys, especially some marketing guys, they are always asking for TV, always asking for radio, always asking for outdoor and other forms of conventional or unconventional media, especially in that region. So unfortunately, that is a blind spot. So what do we rely on? As I said, with triangulated data, one is able to make more effective decision making. What do I mean by triangulated data? There are other sources from, for example, household panel that is run by Kantar, can give good insights into your performance in those regions, how you are doing in terms of penetration, what competition is doing, and some other KPIs that the brands are measuring. That's one. Secondly, there's also the retail audit is another good reporting tool, or continuous measurement, as I should say, that tells you how your brands are performing in the market, in stores, in channel. And then the last part of it is from the media behavior of consumers. So even if this part of data is not available or is not sufficient, you can compensate for it with these other data sets or data points, at least to make some informed decision. What I've also learned, lastly, is that there is nothing better than visiting those regions yourself. So being on ground, getting monitoring reports from your colleagues, competition reports, market reports, consumer behavior. It gives a lot of insights into new product development, media habits, what's going on, social media. So gone are the days, and even there is no one size fits all form of measurement. So I will advise, and for brands that want to weather these headwinds that we see, it's very important that you triangulate data every time, because some data, as he said, are leading data. Other data are lagging data. So at one point, there needs to be a convergence.
Absolutely, I agree. At some point, we need to have a convergence in tackling some of those challenges. Well said. For Dozie Okafor, the next question would be, what opportunities do you foresee for the advertising industry with an effective audience measurement system?
So there are huge opportunities, and those opportunities are obviously stem from the current existing gaps. So for instance, there is a gap when it comes to media evaluation and analysis, at least from the media agency standpoint. So for instance, if you need to do a big major sponsorship, for instance, if you don't have the accurate audience numbers, it's difficult to calculate your cost per thousand, for instance, or what the effective reach would be for that campaign. There's also an issue with reporting, generating insights, especially for a lot of multinational clients that need this reported on a global level. If that data does not exist, as a matter of fact, there are some contractual obligations with these clients that need you to show your pricing in media data terms. So what kind of gross rating points will you deliver on an annual basis by medium? When you don't have reliable data, not only do you report inaccurate data to your clients, but it puts you in a bit of trouble further down the line when it comes up for review, because you probably have a database that is so erratic that the data points are swinging month on month just because of the churn of the respondents. But not to get way into the technicality, that is a huge problem with reporting when the data isn't reliable. There's also the challenge of arbitrary pricing by vendors and media planners, and media owners rather. And on the other side, arbitrary negotiation from clients when there isn't data in front of you, right? So a perfect example would be a client walking up to a radio or a TV station or producer asking for 60% discount is only doing that because the vendor hasn't put the right data in front of him to lead that negotiation, because they're not going to go to Google or Meta and ask for 60% discount. And the reason they can't do that is because Meta has said, I'm going to charge you, for instance, 10 Naira to reach one person. And I have a database of X number of people, and you can buy as many impressions as you like. And they have put that structure in place that makes it almost impossible for you to price arbitrarily. Now, the challenge we have in our market is that because we don't have the right data, it weakens the position of the media owners substantially, and they're not able to justify the pricing. And justification of pricing can't just be a cost structure, right? There has to be something more tangible in terms of the audience you're reaching. Then you've got the challenge of newer media platforms like your subscription video on demand, your advertising video on demand, your Netflixes and your Prime videos that are also taking a chunk out of it. So what that starts to see happen is that those who don't have as much data start to lose business, and the client starts to move their investment to platforms where they have accurate data and they can justify the spend. So you have radio people losing out, you have print losing out. To some extent, you also have some outdoor partners losing out, and you see digital on the rise. And you've got a lot of multinationals in Nigeria already saying, look, we need to increase our digital investment to X% of our total spend. And unfortunately, the losers are print, radio, and some local TV stations start to lose, largely because they can't put the numbers in front. Yeah. So the opportunities, therefore, would be once we are able to have a single buying currency where both the advertiser and the media owners are speaking the same language in terms of, I want to buy this number of GRPs. The person says, I can provide you that number. This is how many audience I have. This is their agenda, their whatever. They have all the data in front of them, and you can have a more reasonable conversation around pricing. It also improves reporting, not just from the media agency standpoint, but from the media owner standpoint. So when I have conversations with my colleagues in the US or in the UK, they're able to have GRP-based conversations with their vendors and say, I need to buy 600 GRPs from you. And the vendor can go away and come back and say, these are the programs, these are the stations that will deliver that amount of GRPs, and here's how much it's going to cost. So it's a single currency conversation. It's obviously going to help the industry because you've got better pricing. I mean, you can take the US example of the Super Bowl, where a single 30-second spot can cost anywhere from $3 million to $5 million. And the only reason they can charge those prices is because they have the numbers and they can show you how many people it reaches. But not only do they have the numbers, they understand the brand need and the brand requirement. So is it a top of the funnel kind of job for brand building, or are you doing conversion and sales at the bottom of the funnel? And they're able to recommend not just the type of content to put out, the content to use and how to drive those conversions, or how to do the brand building and how long it will take. So, I mean, the clear opportunities would be deliver a single buying currency that enables the advertiser and the media owners to have the right type of conversations that actually makes it a win-win. Because right now, in my own view, I think the media owners are losing quite a lot from that conversation. It will also improve the evaluation and justification, and there's a lot more education going through for the media owners around how to price. And then it sustains their business, to be honest, because the moment they can continuously provide the data and show that there is growth, and it also kind of informs the kind of content to promote, and it informs what to stop promoting. Because the numbers will speak for itself, and you can choose what works and what doesn't work. Right now, what works or doesn't work is justified by who is willing to pay for it. And that shouldn't be the case. It should be justified by what are people watching. And when you can show that, then the client is convinced to put the money behind it. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much. Very insightful. And yeah, I want to hear from Ms. Dolapo regarding advertising spend. As one has been on the client side, what are the top decisions that you had to make regarding advertising spend?
Okay, thanks for that question. And Dozie also, he already answered it nicely, so I'll just build on what he has said. I think for us, from the client side, is really about which advertising platform delivers the highest ROI. So, and what do we mean by ROI? There's a discussion and conversation around, even within marketing, how do you measure ROI? So for example, in sales, if the number of cartons or the number of packs or whatever that you sell already gives you an indication of the ROI. Well, in the media, how do you justify it? How do I justify, for example, that I have a media plan of, let's say, 500 million to run over the period of 3 months? Because usually, except if it's a consumer promotion, you cannot tie sales, you cannot tie the number of cartons to the number of eyeballs or GRPs, literally. So there are other sources of measurements that are usually evaluated or compared, with it, which is the brand health. When you talk about the awareness during the time of the campaign, was the awareness high, low, or whatever, and so many others. So that dilemma, unfortunately, will always be there. So first and foremost is the starting point, is who are we talking to? Who is our target audience? What is the business need? So is the business need at this moment, for example, that we need to trigger short-term tactical initiatives and campaigns that help us to deliver Q1, Q2 deliverables and business results? Or are we moving towards the brand building, small schematic, long-term, 1 year, and then you say, give me a 1-year plan, and let's see at the end of the year, let's define clearly what the KPIs are. So the marketing objective and the business objective is very important in determining sometimes the media strategy and the media approach that we have to adopt. Of course, this will also not be done outside of the brand world, as in the brand building or the brand equity building programs and initiatives that has to be done. And again, from experience, and for me, and this is my personal opinion, to be honest, it's not really, because most media people, and it's fine, we always talk about GRP, gross rating point. Why? Is because TV is usually the lead. But now, if we look at, on the one hand, there is media proliferation. On the other hand, there is also audience fragmentation. So how do we balance the equation? How do we balance ensuring that the right media goes to the right audience at the right time? This is very important. We don't want a situation, and speaking for myself, a situation where every time you get a media plan, because the measurement is more or less or somewhat limited to traditional media more, and even more skewed to TV, then most of the time you get a media plan or a media proposal, irrespective of the strategy that has been built around it. You get a media plan or an executional plan that seems to tend towards TV more. And it usually also creates conflict and conversation and sometimes back and forth between clients and the media agency. Because at the end of the day, as I said, you have a limited resource or limited A&P, and sometimes you might not have the resources, to deploy everything on TV. Although TV, from the media planning or the media strategy, suggests that it should be the lead platform. So that's usually the tension points, from a client's perspective. But just to recap again, the starting point really starts with what are we facing? What is the business facing at that point in time? And that's why when you see, yes, agency clients might co-create a media strategy and a media plan in Q4 of the preceding year. But by the time you get into January, the plan no longer is relevant. Why? Because you are now facing the current reality. And then the discussion would be, should we go tactical or should we go long-term, more schematic, more brand building approach towards the year?
Thank you so much for that insight from the client perspective. Always good to hear from the client, even though you're no more with the client. Thank you so much, Mr. Lapo, for that insight. So the last question, because we need to move over to the launch part of the event. We don't want to keep us too long on this call. The last question would be, what are the expectations for the impending launch of the federal government's audience measurement system? So what do you expect to see, Mr. Dozie Okafor? And after your response, I'll hear from Ms. Dolapo.
Thank you, Sokali. I think the first thing I would like to see is, obviously, it needs to be a passive system. It needs to be able to record at the background and make sure that not just being passive, it has to be as close to real time as possible. Another expectation is for them to also try and make it as future-proof as possible. There's a lot of movement in media data measurement across the world. Now, because we're starting now, we don't have to start from the behind, right? We can leapfrog and be where or as close to where the rest of the world is in terms of the methodology, in terms of the technology. There are conversations right now around attention measurement. So not just the audience measurement, but are they attentive? Are they watching? So those are the kind of conversations going on around the world, and how we integrate this into what we do is very important. Another expectation would be the sustainability of the project, right? So as far as pricing goes, and to encourage participation, it needs to be, I mean, data is expensive, right? Let's get that out of the way first of all, but it has to be priced in such a way that the industry can sustain it. Because at the end of the day, we're going to have to sustain that going into the future. So sustainability of the data is also very important. I also expect that they involve as many stakeholders, from the advertising to the media owners to the media agencies, to fully participate and take ownership of the platform. And there isn't any problem looking at what is currently existing, because, I mean, agencies like ourselves have gone into developing our own platforms just because there were gaps in the market. So what is currently available, there are also outdoor companies, by the way, that have brought in outdoor measurement platforms. They have to think about how they can integrate all these into one solution, right? So there isn't duplication of efforts. And then everyone really does take ownership of what is being launched. Over and above that, I think it's the timeliness of it as well. The sooner we have it in place, the better. Nigeria is becoming increasingly a major focus for a lot of clients across the world. It might have something to do with the Ukraine, Russia, and all that, and those markets not being as viable, and they're looking to other developing markets like ours to invest. But also the fact that, you've got big industries like the alcohol businesses that are doing extremely well. And I'm talking the premium lit spirits doing extremely well in Nigeria, and they're looking to invest. And they will invest in data if they see it. So I think that the sooner we have that in place, the faster we can get things up and running.
Thank you. Ms. Dolapo, your response, please.
Yes, to add on to what he has said, I'll say that personally, I do not fully understand the involvement of federal government in this, but it's fine. I will advise that, because the world is a global village and we are learning and being inspired from around the world. I know that a market or a region like Asia, they've fully developed in this area, of course, US and the rest. So it would be nice to understand the model the process and the operational model of how this has been run before now. So has it been government only, private only, or a hybrid? Because when we talk about sustainability, as I said, it's very important to see where all these stakeholders, need to come together to see how it helps to strengthen and achieve the objectives that we are out for. The second part of it is, I like the fact that it drives accountability. But then if you look at it from a media value chain point of view, it's more like an input into the output. Well, so as this conversation is ongoing now, I would like all the relevant stakeholders to now talk about the media compliance itself and the monitoring, because sometimes you have a good plan, and at the end of the day, towards post-evaluation, you see that the plan has been rubbished. So it's really not about the value of money that you are saving for me or that you are plowing back for me. But then we always continue to challenge and ask ourselves and hold ourselves accountable, on the effectiveness of our spend. So I'm saying that let this be a good road to divert into other key deliverables that is relevant in the whole entire value chain. So I look forward to it. Well, and again, I hope that at the end of the day, it's not for clients to be saving money. Every time we have that conversation, the media agents know it's because sometimes you keep money because you are not sure of the effectiveness or the success of that campaign. But when, as he said, that you have a good plan and is data-driven, fact-based, you'll be very surprised that brands will do more and spend more with the objective of building and strengthening their brands.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I wish we had more time to have this discussion, but yeah, we'll leave it at here. At this point, if we need to visit this conversation, we'll definitely arrange for a future meeting where we'll have this conversation. So I must say thank you to Mr. Dozie Okafor. I hope you're not running away. Because
I'll hang on a bit longer.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Dolapo, thanks so much for your time and insights. Very valuable. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.